Hello everyone and welcome to Varo Enthusiast. Here's what's coming up.
Superloop bus route SL3 running between Thamesmead and Bromley North is set to see electric buses from 2025 after a new contract was awarded to current existing operator Stagecoach. Also ahead, UK government set to relax rules on getting 18-year-olds driving buses. The government have set out rules which will relax the rule on 18-year-olds due to a shortage of drivers across the transport industry, lowering the minimum age requirements for bus and coach drivers in Greater Britain. Then,
people are walking around heads bowed, and the morale is very, very difficult to keep a level that makes us operational, if I'm being honest.
major HS2 factory facing closure before it can make a single HS2 train. We take a look inside Britain's largest train factory in Alston. Staff fear the Derby site will shut forever without immediate government help. And finally, the congestion capital, how London's roads are more clogged up now than before ULEZ was rolled out. As it emerges, Sadiq Khan spent £3 million planning a smart pay-per-mile road charging system. Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Varo Enthusiast in London, and tonight we start off by talking about the SL3, which is one of the Superloops, which is set to receive new electric buses from early 2025. The Superloop bus route SL3 running between Thamesmead and Bromley North is set to see electric buses running from 2025 after a new contract was awarded to existing operator Stagecoach. To get the route up and running this year, a short-term contract was awarded to Stagecoach using new route masters which were cascaded from another area of London. They will last around a year on the route before replacement in early 2025. The new contract for the SL3 will run for 7 years. This particular Superloop route hasn't launched at the best time, with hiccups seen since February due to major roadworks forcing long detours between Bexley Heath and Bromley. Last week, roadworks hampered the stretch between Abbey Wood and Bexley Heath. Future Superloop growth, however, its potential is obvious, with the route linking many stations, including to and from the Elizabeth line at Abbey Wood. One issue that will be interesting to see how it works, it links to a new bus rapid transit plan from Thamesmead to Woolwich. A recent TfL meeting revealed £23 million funding from central government has a 2026 deadline. Half an express bus now operates through not BRT, the other half due soon. Will the BRT branded Superloop and be a new unique SL route or become part of an extended SL3, using that money for certain priority measures? Route SL2 began in North Woolwich, so there's a gap in the loop from Woolwich to North Thamesmead. Perhaps neither, though, and it'll be its own self-contained system with no Superloop branding whatsoever. As for the SL3, new housing will increase custom, as well as a faster route for existing passengers, and it may even cause a reasonable amount of a model shift if reliable and fast enough once the roadworks settle down. Housing development as a result of the Superloop, however, it remains to be seen whether Peabody will begin to draw up plans and consult on homes in North Thamesmead to benefit from both SL3 running limited stop between Abbey Wood, Elizabeth Line Station, and the future bus rapid transit to Woolwich. Masses of retail sheds and cars parking dominant North Thamesmead, and the area is now just 5 minutes from the Elizabeth Line Station via an express bus. And once the £23 million BRT in Woolwich begins, those options only improve. Waiting for a DLR extension that may never happen, and even if it does, it's likely to happen in 10 plus years, will assist London's chronic housing shortage. It's certainly possible to begin planning and building the first few thousand homes before the higher capacity transport arrives to facilitate the eventual 10K plus proposed. And now we take a look at one of the major HS2 factories facing closure before it can even make a single HS2 train. The UK's biggest train factory is supposed to be a crucial part of delivering HS2, but the site in Derby could close years before its work on the carriages is expected to start. Today, its squadron of forklift trucks sits motionless. The trailers that can haul loads of 4 tons are empty. The giant cranes are at standstill. One by one, the red brick Victorian engine sheds at the huge Litch Church Lane site are falling silent after 147 years. It's very quiet, like a ghost town in some parts, says Mark Bickerton. He says he's a production manager at the Alston plant who's potentially facing redundancy together with 1,300 other staff because the facility has run out of orders. In all, 15,000 jobs are at risk because of the impact of an extensive supply chain. When the factory is busy, a whole passenger carriage can be assembled from scratch in as little as 16 hours. It has the capacity to make up to 700 of them a year. This is the only plant in the country that does everything from designing a train to building and trailing it all in one place. And here's the clip from that video.
This potentially would be the last chance for them to save those 900 jobs.
Today I'm visiting the Alston train factory here in Derby, which has been making trains for 147 years. But now 1,300 jobs here are at risk because of the orders running out.
There's uncertainty at the moment, and a lot of people are walking around heads bowed, and morale is very, very difficult to keep at a level that makes us operational, if I'm being honest. You've come to the end of an era, really. You've got generations of people working here, and sadly it looks like it potentially could come to an end. I mean, I've got 2 grandchildren here myself, and there's always chatter about new work coming in. That chatter's been very, very minimal. The hustle and bustle about the site is not what it used to be here. It's just very quiet. It's like a ghost town. We've got a massive skill set here at this site with experience and knowledge that you can't buy. Those people are starting to diminish and wane off over the last few weeks. I think we'll get to a point where whatever rescue plan comes forth will have lost the majority of that skill. There's been 6,000 people on this site at one point. We're now down to about 900. And this potentially will be the last chance for them to save those 900 jobs. We can evolve and change just like that. We've invested a lot of money over the years in this business, and I'll be honest, I'm concerned about the well-being and the mindset of the people that are here, and they just need an answer on what's going on.
The clip there talking about that as well. Then going on, walking around the vast sites, which includes a mile-long test track, a few engineers can still be seen working on a rolling stock, but they are merely applying the finishing touches and performing checks. Bickerton, age 63, has 2 grandchildren working here. They started as apprentices and both thought they would have a job for life, he says. Working here, man and boy. Instead, they may also have to find themselves jobless soon. You've got generations of people working here that sadly looks like it potentially could come to an end, he says. His family's situation sums up how important this factory is to the community and the local economy. Beyond that, however, the nation's rail manufacturing industry seems to be at stake. After the last 200 2,660 adventure carriages rolled off the line last month. Alstom faces a gap of at least 18 months until the next manufacturing contract begins. That is supposed to involve kitting out the bodies of UK's fastest ever trains, which would be built for HS2 at Hitachi's Newton Aycliffe plant in County Durham. But Alston says that the schedule for this joint program, penciled in 2026, still hasn't been confirmed by the government. The future of Hitachi's factory is also in doubt. Though the northeastern plant has more time than Derby, it faces a similar impending crisis over a lack of orders. In a private email to local MPs last month, it revealed by Chronicle Live, Hitachi's warned that there are currently no obvious or existing solutions that can deliver the volume of work in necessary timeframe to maintain the current workforce. Alstom's managing director for the UK and Ireland, Nick Crossfield, says he has been trying to persuade the government to activate small extensions on existing contracts to keep his site just busy enough to stay open. He has lobbied for tenders on forthcoming contracts to be issued earlier and for refurbishment to work to be moved to Derby. He claims the company offered to move a new project here from Poland if it could secure more assistance. Bridging that gap in order could allow Lichchurch Lane to modernize in the meantime, preparing to build battery and hydrogen-powered trains of the future. It's already a worldwide center for building monorails, like a recently completed system in Cairo, Egypt. Staff in the design office here are working on the new Adisa commuter model, and Derby could become that train global base if it can just survive a couple more years. Rail experts are certain that more work will arrive. The train industry tends to go through cyclical booms and busts in order, and after through this will come another peak. Operators are expected to need hundreds more carriages soon for routes run by Shuttle-run Railways, Southeastern, Northern, and TransPennine Express. But those frustrating discussions with the Department for Transport have so far led to nothing. Crossfield complained in an interview with the rail podcast Green Signals this week. He believes that an order for as few as just 10 extra trains could save the factory, but fears the site and its skills will be soon lost forever. You've got generations of people working here, and that sadly looks like it could come to an end. And now we look at something that's been talked about a lot in the news lately and has been going around, where the UK government is to relax rules to get 18-year-olds driving buses due to a shortage in Great Britain, which has prompted moves to a lower minimum age requirement for bus and coach drivers. It's not just the police officers. Bus drivers will be officially getting younger under government plans to relax laws on 18-year-olds behind the wheel. A shortage of drivers across the transport industry have prompted moves to lower minimum age requirements for bus and coach drivers in Great Britain, as well as speeding up training for bus, coach, and lorry drivers. Although there are already a small number of teenage bus drivers, qualified drivers under the age of 21, and are restricted to driving short routes up to 31 miles, which is 50 kilometers, and coach services and many rural bus routes. The Department for Transport said that the proposal should bring more reliable service and help passengers travel with confidence. It will tweak rules to allow prospective bus and HGV drivers to start theory and offer training before receiving their professional license to help tackle shortages in passenger transport and haulage sector. The DFT said that changes will not affect safety but will allow drivers to complete training and start work faster. The Minister for the Road, Guy Opperman, said, quote, being a bus or lorry driver can be an excellent career for young people, and these proposals could help younger talent into transport, encouraging diversity in the sector. He added it would go some way to continue to ease drivers' shortages, delivering more reliable bus and coach services and more resilient supply chain. While driver shortages have been updated since problems during the height of the COVID pandemic in 2020, according to the industry, it estimates that most of the confidential passengers transport CPT are still almost 10% fewer coach drivers than needed demand, which is likely to grow. Graham Vidler, the chief executive of CPT, said, welcomed the move. As 18-year-olds are allowed to drive an articulated lorry already, there's a clear case for allowing them also to drive all types of coach and bus services. Meanwhile, Labour has announced plans to accelerate bus franchising, allowing more local transport authorities to take back control and end what is the postcode lottery of the bus service. Labour said if elected, it would create a further 250-mile passenger journeys a year with greater flexibility over funding and support for public ownership. The Shadow Transport Secretary, Luz Hay, said, quote, Labour will give every community the power to take back control of their bus services and will support local leaders to deliver better buses faster. She said it would create a safe, vital route service, end today's postcode lottery of bus services, and kickstart a revival in bus services across England. The policy would bolster rules that have allowed metro mayors to regulate bus services in the region. Now operations in Manchester, soon to follow Liverpool, and also in West Yorkshire. And finally tonight, we look at the congestion capital and how London's roads are more clogged up than before ULEZ was rolled out, as it emerges that 3 million planning was a smart pay-per-mile road charging system which was supposed to be brought in by Sadiq Khan. Congestion in London is worse now than it ever was before Sadiq Khan's hated ULEZ scheme was rolled out and then controversially expanded. New figures have revealed that data compiled by TomTom, the location tech company, shows that the car journeys around the capital are taking longer now than they ever did 5 years ago due to increasing amounts of congestion. Figures show that the congestion level percentage, which is a measure of how much longer it takes to drive around London compared to if there was no traffic, is higher in 2024 than it was in 2019. ULEZ, which requires people to pay £12.50 daily for charges for driving non-compliant vehicles, was first introduced in April 5 years ago and was expanded to cover the whole of Greater London, sparking a furious backlash amongst drivers and so-called Blade Runner activists, tearing the cameras down. TomTom data shows that in January, it took on an average of 37% longer to drive around London's capital in the same month in 2019 when the congestion level was only at 33%. In February, it took an average of 40% longer compared to 30% in 2019, and last month, the average of driving time around London has risen from 37% 5 years ago to 39% now. And as you can see on your screen right now is the photo of the charts which show how much the levels have risen in that time period and how in those times you can see a clear difference from 2019 to 2024. Andy Marchant, the traffic expert at TomTom, says, quote, public programs that aim to tackle rising traffic emissions, including London's ultra-low emission zone, remain essential to support the UK's ambitions to reach net zero by 2050. It should, however, be coupled with long-term action. Our analysis shows that 5 years ago, from the introduction of ULEZ, London remains the world's slowest city to drive through. The capital's fuel consumption and CO2 emissions inevitably increased, At the same time, with London's petrol vehicles having the highest CO2 impact in 2023, emitting 3.56 tons of CO2 per 10,000 miles driven in 2023. It comes amid the claims that Mr. Khan is plotting a smart pay-per-mile road charging system after it emerged that Transport for London has spent around £3 million on such a scheme. The so-called future RUC, first outlined in documents in 2022, sought to introduce a single smart road user charging scheme that will potentially replace an existing charge, including ULEZ. A Freedom for Information request seen by Mail Online shows that TfL's officials have been working on this project. The scheme would use sophisticated technology and make it as simple and fair as possible for Londoners who have been charged for driving around the capital. A number of technical resources were also produced to support the optioneering and undertake early development of functionalities which any potential future scheme could require. For the response, the future RUC had been developed to explore the potential for a smart road user charging scheme. However, the request goes on to claim that it's now closed. Suzanne Hall, the Conservative candidate for London's mayoral election, told the Telegraph, quote, "It is outrageous that he's splurged £3 million building a prototype to tax drivers by mile. Now makes us to believe that he won't use it. Sadiq Khan won't listen, which is why we have plans to bring in the paper mile so he can hammer drivers as soon as his ULEZ cash runs dry. I'm listening to Londoners. I'll scrap the ULEZ expansion on a day one and chuck Sadiq Khan's paper mile prototype in the bin." A TfL spokesperson told Mail Online, "Money spent has informed work to bring our existing outsourced schemes to the congestion charge, ULEZ, and the low emission zone in-house when the contract expires in 2026. The aim of bringing the schemes in-house is to achieve better value for money. There are no other options in plan to develop it." And a Labour mayor spokesperson says, quote, "Sadiq Khan has repeatedly and categorically ruled out introducing paper mile for as long as he is mayor. Claims by Conservatives that Sadiq will introduce the paper mile and lies to design to mislead Londoners." Such a scheme was first proposed by Boris Johnson, who was then mayor, and was also planned by Rishi Sunak, the current Prime Minister, who was Chancellor at the time. Sadiq has always been clear with that any such scheme was unnecessary, following the decision to expand the ULEZ to the whole of London, and has repeatedly ruled out introducing it while he is mayor, including in a letter to TfL commissioners last month. The TomTom report from 3 months ago looks at some congestion monitoring, comparing 2023 to 2022 and with 2022 with 2021, and would be expected. It shows London is getting back to being as busy as we were pre-pandemic. The main difference is that now, thanks to the largest clean air zone in the world, it is doing so with cleaner cars. Toxic emissions have nearly halved in Santa, and with the new Superloop Elizabeth line and quadrupling of cycling paths, it's never been easier to get access across great city health and sustainability. And that is it for now. If you ever miss our show, remember you can always catch us online on our podcast and across YouTube, Twitter, and on Flickr. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from London.